Hello, and welcome to the Self-Sovereignty Podcast and YouTube channel. I'm Steve, and in this episode, we're going to continue our exploration of alternative healing by focusing on PSYCH-K, a science-based process that allows individuals to transform personal anxieties, fears, limiting beliefs, and self-doubts. PSYCH-K has been around since the early 80s and has received recognition and validation in several professional publications spanning multiple disciplines, including neuroscience, psychotherapy, and business. Ongoing cognitive and brain mapping research continue to demonstrate that at its core, the value of the whole brain state, a type of bilateral symmetrical brain wave patterning created during the PSYCH-K process, can have a phenomenal personal impact in the way that transcends the more traditional and temporary methods of behavioral and habit change, such as affirmations and positive thinking. And here to lead us through a discussion on PSYCH-K is Elaine Canepa, a transformation catalyst and the owner of Your Inner Source. I first met Elaine at a PSYCH-K conference, and I am absolutely thrilled and privileged to have her join us here today. Not only has Elaine been helping her clients, or partners as we call them in PSYCH-K, she is also my personal facilitator and is just an all-around beautiful human being. Elaine, welcome to Self-Sovereignty.
All right, Steve, thanks. So PSYCH-K for me is the most powerful and direct way for someone to change their belief system or change limiting beliefs into a place of beliefs that feel more expansive, more supportive to meet any goals a person may have in their life. That may be around feeling more peaceful, feeling healthier, choosing to eat better, maybe around more successful relationships. It may be around aligning with a career that feels more supportive and congruent of where someone is in their life. So any area at all that you can imagine that someone wants to step into a new way of being, that's where we work with the PSYCH-K belief change processes to create a new supportive reality that a person is truly desiring in their heart.
You describe yourself as a transformation catalyst, correct? So you're stepping these folks that you're working with through that process. So really it's non-invasive, and they're doing the work. You're just guiding them through a process, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as a transformation catalyst, the way I see my role, the idea of a catalyst is something that sparks change, or sparks the beginning of a change process. So the PSYCH-K work is extremely transformative. And so I came up with the term transformation catalyst because I just love to be in this supportive role. I don't heal people or fix people or give them a prescription. I am not a therapist. Rather, what I do is I have a set of basic protocols, is what we call them. And I listen to my clients, or my partners, as we call it in PSYCH-K, rather than a client. I listen to my partners. I listen for what sounds like a limiting belief or an area of struggle. And then I support them in choosing the words, the thoughts, the meaning that they want to give to a new belief or how they want their life to look. So the nice thing about this modality is it's incredibly empowering. It's rooted in the concept of choice. And we certainly live in a world sometimes where we feel limited in our choices. So that's one of the pieces I love most about PSYCH-K. The partner, the client, is always the person that is choosing how to move through a particular belief. So I provide like the treasure map. We go on a treasure hunt together, and then the partner is actually the person that's holding the flashlight, and we're walking through the woods together to find the gems or the treasure.
Now you mentioned limiting beliefs. Let's talk about that a little bit, because with PSYCH-K, we're really talking about the conscious mind and the subconscious mindset. And the limiting beliefs are those beliefs that we have, that we hold, that we instill within our subconscious mind, that are really kind of preventing us from moving forward in some of those key areas that you mentioned. You know, it may be health, it may be relationships, it may be some level of an anxiety. But can you kind of take that and describe in a little bit more detail what we're talking about as it relates to the conscious mind and the subconscious mind?
Absolutely. So I'll kind of I'll address your question in kind of two parts. First, we'll kind of look at the mind, the two levels of mind. I'm not a scientist, so I won't go super deep into this, but this is really important. So we have the conscious mind, which is, you know, I think this, I choose this, I'm going to go to the store, you know, I'm going to go see a friend, I'm going to make a lot of money. So we think that the conscious mind is actually driving the car most of the time. In actuality, the subconscious mind, it's been found through research, actually drives 95% of what's going on in our mind, with only 5% being in this conscious place of choice. So we may think that we're choosing all day long, but so often what's really driving our choices is the subconscious and the beliefs that are in the subconscious. So an example of a limiting belief would be, there's never enough. I'll never get what I truly want. I'll have to work really hard to succeed or be seen. I'm not worthy of love. These would be examples of limiting beliefs. Now, these limiting beliefs can be kind of sneaky, and they can hijack our lives, and they hijack our lives pretty often. Say someone has repeatedly tried to have a successful relationship, but every time they live out the same exact pattern, it's just a different person sitting on the other side of the table. Well, perhaps there is a limiting belief of, I'm not worthy of love, or I'm not worthy of attention. But so often we don't know that these little limiting beliefs, or sometimes really large limiting beliefs, are lurking underneath. So in our work together, we identify where those limiting beliefs lie, and we figure out what you want instead. So instead of believing that you're not worthy of love or worthy of a beautiful relationship, what would you like? I am worthy of love. I am worthy of being in a beautiful relationship. We rewrite that and program that new belief at the subconscious mind so that reality then begins to meet us at this new place.
So when we think of a limiting belief like that, like I am not worthy of love, you know, consciously, I would think, you know, for the most part, everyone would consciously think I am worthy of love. But what you're saying is there's something in the subconscious mindset, for whatever reason, however it got there, whenever it got there, that's subconsciously making me think or feel that I'm not worthy of love. And so I guess my question is, where do these limiting beliefs come from? How do they materialize in our life along the way? And then what you're saying is, and maybe it doesn't matter where they come from, but we have the ability to reach deep inside our subconscious mind and change that to a more favorable belief to meet our current desires, goals, and such. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You summed it up beautifully. I can give an example. All right. Okay. So I've always, tried new sports, but I never was really that good at it. So I did a little work, and I went back to a time in my life when I was about 5 years old, and my mom took me to the doctor, and he said, your daughter has severe something in her brain. Now, mind you, this was in the 70s. They couldn't do, I don't think they did MRIs. He just did an assessment, did the little hammer on my knee or whatever they did back then. And he said, oh, your daughter has this condition, this severe condition where she's just always going to be terribly uncoordinated. She will never really do very well at sports. She'll always be kind of awkward. She'll always be kind of slow. but you can help her develop like her school talents and these other things, but just basically the physical side, she's never going to be, you know, much of an athlete, right? I was 5, right? So there was this doctor telling my mother this. So consequently, I was never put in any sports programs, and I was never encouraged to do sports. And I believed that I was clumsy. I would try, I would usually, I played volleyball sort of really poorly when I was in 9th grade. And I continued to feel like a failure around these athletic pursuits. So when I came to this work in PSYCH-K, I did a lot of work around my physical abilities. And through the processes with a facilitator that was supporting me at the time, I had memories of actually the doctor having this conversation with my mom, and my mom not encouraging me to do sports. So we saw the subconscious belief around I'm clumsy, uncoordinated, I'm not ever going to succeed. So you can think how that can affect a child developing. It may be something around, you know, my body's inadequate. Like, that's not really where I went, but who knows what can develop in the mind of a little person when something like this happens. And then you may get the elements of shame around, I'm just never good enough, I'm never going to be able to play sports. Then you get to see how these things begin to play out in somebody's life. Okay. I consider this a faulty foundation. So with PSYCH-K, we can identify these pieces like detective work and create what you really want instead.
So that's interesting. So in this case, what you described with sports for you, you were able to go back and identify a certain point in time or situation that kind of led you to this perspective of self-doubt from a sports perspective. So you were able to unpack it. But, you know, what about an individual that has some level of an anxiety, for example, let's say somebody's afraid of heights. I don't know why I'm afraid of heights. I've just always been afraid of heights. I don't want to be afraid of heights because, you know, it impedes my ability to do some of the things that I might want to do now. I might want to go hiking. I might want to go clean, you know, go up on a ladder and clean my gutters or something like that. Is PSYCH-K a process where you have to be able to go back and think through, you know, in my formative years, you know, how I came to believe this limiting belief or have this limiting belief? Or is it a process where that doesn't really matter? Let's rewrite that into a belief that is positive and aligned with what you're aspiring to do.
That's a great question. And the answer is no. You don't have to go back and dig through your past or dig through your rubble. Again, this isn't therapy. So a facilitator or transformation catalyst, I don't encourage my clients to tell a long story. I was using that story to illustrate, you know, the concept of beliefs. But the beauty is that, for instance, your discomfort with heights. So we don't ever have to know where this came from. We simply know what the information that's at hand. I'm afraid of heights. I don't want to be afraid of heights. I love to hike. I want to climb up the ladder. I want the freedom to do this. So in the case like this, we could use a certain change process to address the current state of discomfort or distress that you feel when you think about walking up a mountain. And in this case, there doesn't necessarily have to be new words or a new belief created. We simply let the process work to shift from a place of discomfort or disconnect into a place of more peace and non-attachment around the walking up the mountain or climbing up the ladder. So the beauty of it is you don't have to have conscious knowledge of how you got to where you are. We start where you are, and we simply find out, what is it you want instead, Steve? Do you want to be able to climb a mountain or climb up a ladder? And you'd say, absolutely, I want that freedom. We would do a PSYCH-K belief change process and then we would take it from there and see what shows up next.
Awesome. And that's where I was leading to, is that belief change process. So there's several approaches to how you get there. But you're basically saying, let's create a belief or a goal statement to support that belief of where you want to go. And through the PSYCH-K process, or various processes, because there are a couple different approaches, you're rewriting your subconscious belief and instilling that sense of accomplishment or achievement that an individual is looking for. And it may be, I'm afraid to speak in public, but I've got a great opportunity if I can just get up on stage and share it. And so in that case, you would go through this process with one of your clients. And that's basically what's called a balancing session.
So a session is just, an hour. Some facilitators do a 2-hour session, but you would do a session, and then the actual, there's several different processes we use. And so a balance is the actual going through the process of identifying where you're at, or identifying what you don't want, and then identifying what you want instead, then applying the step-by-step protocol that's laid out in the balance, and then seeing what the result is, seeing what comes of the process, realizations the client may make, or aha moments, or just a more sense of peace.
Okay. Can you walk us through how did you become involved in PSYCH-K? Let's start there.
Sure. Okay. So I had come up against a pretty challenging time in my life, from a relationship that had ended. And at the time, this relationship, I knew it was a pattern. And I had even, gone to a yoga retreat about it, trying to look inward at my inner light and things, and several other things like that. But it didn't make any sense. Like, why did I keep bumping up against the same thing again? So I met Robin Graham, who also lives in Memphis, Tennessee, teaches nationally and internationally. She's been a PSYCH-K instructor since 1997. She lives here, and I was fortunate enough that she was in town at the time, and I booked a session with her. And I had no idea what to expect. I didn't believe that I could shift this thing, because the same thing kept showing up again and again and again. And we did a session, and I knew in that moment that I had stumbled upon something that was truly different. It wasn't just, let's identify the issue, let's see what the pattern is, why don't you make a different decision? It wasn't that. It was, she helped me see where the limiting belief was. And then she helped me to create what I wanted instead in a relationship. And I felt such a sense of peace and expansion, and like, oh my gosh, this makes total sense. I get to live my life differently going forward. From there, I was like, I have to learn this. So within a month or two, Robin was teaching in Memphis, and I went to my first workshop. Then I went to my second workshop. Then I practiced on my own, because when you take the first workshop, this is the beauty of PSYCH-K. When you take the first workshop, it's a 3-day intensive. You actually learn how to use the basic processes. So you walk out of the workshop empowered with tools to already start changing your reality in your life. Then I was like, oh my gosh, this works. And I decided, this is what I want to do with my life. I'd always looked for, alternative healing methods and holistic ways of approaching things. I'd done self-help things and all these other, traveled, and, kind of looking inward, like, what's the answer? What's the next step? And I was like, this is it. This makes sense. when we go to the subconscious, which is really the root of where our beliefs lie, and change them, everything changes. And it was such a huge moment of realization that I could take this work forward into the world and help other people find peace and love and just solidity in themselves and hope where maybe they didn't have it before. I knew that this was what I had to do. And I did all the workshops. I continue to do the workshops just to keep abreast of all the, information and the energetic changes. And that's how I got into it.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. I want to go back to something that you mentioned as far as, sometimes it's a 1 hour session, sometimes it's a 2 hour session, but I want to be clear. It doesn't mean that you're going to have 1 hour or 2 hour session related to a limiting belief and walk out of that and have, a new positive belief. And you may, but you may find that it's going to take multiple sessions because the subconscious mind is so interconnected. Can you kind of walk us through that aspect of it a little bit?
So once a belief is changed, it's changed forever, right? So I am worthy of, I am worthy of love, right? You can rewrite that belief in the course of a 1 hour session, along with 5 or 6 other beliefs. There may be several beliefs that you dig into in a particular session. Now, does that mean another situation might come up somewhere else in your life where you recognize, oh, I'm not feeling this worthiness? Sure. You may be at work and everyone's in the lunchroom and nobody invited you. So another aspect of not feeling worthy may come up, maybe around attention or being included. So one session, I guess it could technically change everything, but recall that we have a myriad of beliefs that make up who we are. And so typically, yes, you can make beautiful headway around a topic in a 1 hour session, but often there's connected pathways within us. Right? So you may be working on a health issue in a session, and then things come up that are around worth. It doesn't mean that the previous session in which you worked on, I'm worthy of love, is null and void. It simply means that just like we are a complex human being made up of many cells and many organs and all sorts of processes, beliefs run the same way. So the answer is it a one and done? No, because are you a one and done? No, we're constantly evolving. We're constantly taking in new information from the world. We're constantly experiencing new things, but PSYCH-K can support that personal evolution when you're ready to level up or start to remember that innate design of who you are.
Great. Thank you for that overview. So we've talked about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind as it's related to PSYCH-K. There's another component of it, which is the left brain, right brain, which we call in PSYCH-K the whole brain state. Can you walk us through what the whole brain state means and how that's related to PSYCH-K and our beliefs?
Sure. So this is going to be a rudimentary science description. So the left brain is considered like the logical side of the brain, along with some other words, but we're going to just use the logical side. The right side is more the intuitive feeling side of the brain. So they look at the world from two different aspects. All right. So when someone is whole brain to something, they're using all of their processing abilities, all of their presence, the logical and the intuitive. All right. Now, when someone is not whole brain to something, they're typically in the reptilian brain, which is fight, flight, or freeze. Okay. So when something doesn't feel comfortable or feels scary or feels inconsistent, whatever the word is, If a person is not whole, cannot get whole brain in the moment to what's happening, they go into fight, flight, or freeze. It's like the hijack response. All right. So our goal in PSYCH-K is to move into a whole brain state around, for instance, mountain climbing, right? So walking up a high mountain before PSYCH-K puts you into fight, flight, or freeze. Like, oh my God, there's no way, that's too, I can't do that. And then you did the process, right? And you got whole brain to face the issue or face the problem or face the conundrum. And you were able to apply all of your thinking, logical and intuitive, to overcome this obstacle. And the result was, I believe, after you did the balance, you felt really comfortable walking to the ledge of a mountain.
Absolutely. And you are correct. And when I speak to, the fear of heights, that was indeed, a situation that I had. And that's where I really became a believer in the PSYCH-K process through the workshop. I went into the program as a skeptic, and I served that up as an example and met with Robin and walked through that process. And I can tell you, I have no idea why I was afraid of heights, but I am no longer afraid of heights. It was just so transformational. And I thought, oh my God, if this can work for that kind of a fear, what about other types of anxieties? And that's where I really became much more involved in PSYCH-K, to kind of transition, my role in my life into PSYCH-K. And we've talked about PSYCH-K as it relates to fears and anxieties and limiting beliefs. Let's talk about healing. What about healing from trauma type situations? Is that something that PSYCH-K can assist with?
So when a partner comes to me and they've had a traumatic event, a car accident, or a breakup, or suddenly lost a job, or the death of a loved one, they're definitely in that fight, flight, or freeze response, even when they're remembering it. Because even though they're in the present moment, the subconscious mind does not distinguish between what's really happening and what's being imagined. So every time the person thinks about the sudden tragic death of their spouse, they're triggered, right? So we know it, we've heard the word trigger. It's pretty common to hear that word these days. So the way we approach it in PSYCH-K is, rather than using the word trauma, we call it a stressful situation, not to diminish their experience, but to kind of let it be a little bit more neutral. And so, yes, we absolutely have a PSYCH-K process in which a person can get whole brain to that traumatic event from the past without having to tell a long involved story or they don't even have to remember it. So a person can know that when they were 2, they got locked in the closet accidentally by their 8-year-old brother, and it was terrifying because they were told it was terrifying, but they may not have conscious memory of it. But perhaps now as an adult, they're afraid of the dark. And they make the connection, this is because I think I was locked in the closet when I was 2 by my 8-year-old brother. They don't have to have any conscious memory, and we do the process, and it's not a reliving of the trauma, because we always get permission at a higher level to do the work, to rewrite the perception of the traumatic event. And from there, amazing things can often happen. There may be realizations, there may be a deep sense of relief that they've never felt before. It's quite amazing the things I've experienced with clients in this process.
It's interesting. Now, you've mentioned a couple things there that I want to just kind of hone in on. So you mentioned, triggers. So there's triggers in this trauma, or this trauma memory. There's emotions. Really what we're talking about is a subconscious memory, but it's not just the thought of an event, it's the thought with the associated emotions, so and feelings and anxiety. So it's something happened, and when that happened, it caused me to tense up. It caused my heart to race. It caused all of these other types of reactions. And so, these are all memories that are stored along the way. And it gets back to the fight or flight. When you're in a situation that you're unfamiliar with, your subconscious mind is going to take over and say, stop the press. What are we doing here? And have we ever been here before? Because, you're on the edge of a ledge and this isn't safe
Right.
for you, so you should be feeling really scared. You should have anxiety. Your knees should be locking up, or whatever it is. Move away carefully, get ready to run. And so you're talking about replacing that memory with something that is much more visually appealing, emotionally appealing, and comfortable, so that you're in a situation that's similar. You're not going to tense up your muscles. You're not going to have that deep anxiety anymore. And that's kind of what you get in a traumatic type experience, right?
Yeah, we basically support the process of moving out of fight or flight into a whole brain state, and it's pretty simple. It may take a minute or two. One of the things we talk about is going into whole brain posture. That's in one of the balance processes, which is a crossing of the hands at the wrists and the ankles at the wrists with the eyes closed. It's just a very simple seated or lying down posture if someone can't sit for any reason, of giving the body and the mind on all the levels time to shift out of fight or flight into a whole brain state, into a more peaceful state. And it's really that simple.
Okay. You had mentioned holding space, so I want to talk about that for a minute. There's a very spiritual component to PSYCH-K as well. So maybe you can kind of walk us through the 3D versus the 5D components of PSYCH-K, or at least the spiritual aspect of PSYCH-K, because we've talked about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, but there's a super conscious level in the PSYCH-K belief system as well, right?
Absolutely. So first of all, PSYCH-K is not a religion, and it is not a dogma. It is spirituality and science combining to create these processes that create the shift in the new belief system, new beliefs and new reality. Okay. So when we talk about the spiritual component of PSYCH-K, it's very important to know that you don't have to have any kind of particular belief or background or upbringing around religion, church, God, any of that. You don't have to even believe in those things for PSYCH-K to work with you, because you can think about it in terms of, we live in this bigger energetic field in which everything is ultimately connected. If you are a science-minded person, you can delve into that aspect of it. Like, everything is connected. Everything is in this larger field. So in PSYCH-K, we refer to this bigger energetic picture as superconscious. Superconscious can mean something different to 10 different people in the room. But the idea is that when we are willing to show up and let someone give us support. So in the case of holding space, I'm, as the facilitator, kind of holding the space, which means I've got full attention on you as a partner. I show up with all of my senses, all of me, to be present as a sacred witness, if you want to call it, to give you the platform to explore your inner terrain and find out what it is that doesn't feel good. Whatever it is, a belief, a past traumatic event, an incident that happened yesterday, a concept. And then together with the assistance of superconscious, which is this greater field of energy that's always supportive, always loving, always on our side, always giving us what we need to level up. So we work with superconscious to support the partner in this container of energy to shift those beliefs. It's always safe in the sense of we always ask for permission and commitment at this higher superconscious level for this change process to happen. So it's kind of like the safety hatch. If in the work we don't get permission and commitment to change a belief, then we give it the space that it needs to just sit for maybe paying attention to later. So hope that's answered your question. I kind of went off a little bit of a tangent there.
No, I think it did, and I think the other thing that's important that I want to touch on is that while you're doing this, you can work remote. You can work with your partners remote, through a Zoom session like this, as long as you're able to comfortably hold that space during that session, so that you'll get to that level of calmness and that subconscious process, I guess.
Absolutely. So I personally see probably 80% of my clients online all over the country, and several international clients. And we have a very specific process or protocol in PSYCH-K in which we are connected in the field. There's been scientific studies where they have a certain type of cell in a laboratory on one continent. They have the same type of cell in a laboratory on another continent. And the scientist in this laboratory does some kind of manipulation to the cell, and the scientist over there on the other continent, the cell in that dish over there responds to what this scientist is doing. I wish I knew the name of that study because it's fascinating, but the idea is we are connected in this field. And when intention, which is very powerful, is set for two people to connect, and getting the permission that it's safe and it's appropriate for this connection to happen, then I can work very effectively with partners all over the world to give them the support they need to dig deep and shift those beliefs. It's really, really beautiful. It's really amazing.
Putting it into a different context, we think about habits and rituals, good habits, bad habits, but you can create a habit over an extended period of time. You can have a ritual that you do something every day to try to change a habit, a bad habit, for example. That takes time over a period of time. But an alternative would be to go through this PSYCH-K process and understand what that limiting belief is, and then kind of rewrite that programming through this balancing session and this process. Not that, doing the rituals, there's still probably work to do in some of these, especially if it's, if your desire is to lose weight or to change your eating habits or something like that, there may still be some homework, but at least you've laid the groundwork to say that you've got a more positive self-belief instead of that limiting belief that's that might be at the root cause of a weight problem, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. You can say 400 affirmations. I'm beautiful and thin. Yeah. It's a beautiful belief. I'm beautiful and thin. You can say it for the next 30 days, if the subconscious believes that you're not beautiful and thin, so that you're going to always be not beautiful and not thin, or whatever it is, then that subconscious belief will hijack every time. The person will choose the cake over the carrot sticks. You know, you can white knuckle it, you can, you know, mind over matter, you can, you know, brain power it. But at the end of the day, if there is something in the subconscious that whatever it is, whatever the belief is that is going to hijack it, you're going to end up, a person's going to end up eating the chocolate cake instead of the carrot sticks, right?
Right.
So this is different than affirmations, which are beautiful. There's some beautiful affirmation statements out there. But you have to go to what's underneath, identify it, rewrite it there, and then at the conscious level, you take a symbolic action after the belief change that is saying, yes, universe, I am willing to take the next step. What's my action step going to be? I am going to, with this new foundation, choose a salad and not this chocolate cake.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you have like a bite of chocolate cake, but you don't eat
The whole
half of it. Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't matter where that limiting belief came from along the way. What's important, I mean, it's you're overwriting that limiting belief, and you're changing it to what you want that belief or that understanding to be for you moving forward. That's more aligned with what your current goals and desires and aspirations are in life.
Absolutely. I mean, again, this isn't therapy, so we don't have to talk about when did you start wanting chocolate cake, or when did you stop liking carrots? Did your mom withhold food from you? Like, we don't do any of that. And now, if you've come from a therapeutic background and you have a whole lot of like great information, like, hey, I've just been unpacking this relationship with my mother for 5 years, but dang, I just keep falling in the same hole with her. That's great information, because then we can look at that relationship and just say, well, what do you want said with your mom? I want to be respected. So we start right there with the new beliefs. It's fascinating.
It
Absolutely.
is. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing.
You mentioned you work with most of your partners remote. How do people get a hold of you? How do people reach out and contact you if there's something that they would like to explore to improve their beliefs?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my website address is www.yourinnersource. That's as if it's all one word, yourinnersource.com, because I like to look at it as we're going into your inner source to find the gold, to help you create this new life you want. There's all the information about how I work and some other things that I do in addition to PSYCH-K. PSYCH-K is my main focus.
Mm-hmm.
There's a contact form there. You can also email me at elaine@yourinnersource.com. You can always mention that you saw me here meeting with Steve. And I have a little special gift for you if you do end up mentioning this interview.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And again, this is non-invasive. It's permission-based. It's a one-on-one process. So for anybody in the self-sovereignty community that is looking to build a better you, understanding that the answer is really within you, yeah, I really encourage you to reach out to Elaine and look at Elaine's website, do a little more research on PSYCH-K. It's amazing how popular PSYCH-K has become, and really just energy psychology, because this is really a component of energy psychology. But it's become so prevalent and so much more popular, and actually alternative healing in general is really coming to its own, as we move away from some of the current modern medicine and pharmaceutical based therapies. People are starting to realize there are alternative solutions and options available And certainly PSYCH-K is one worth exploring. And so
Absolutely.
with that, is there anything else that you would like to add?
I just think that I want to encourage everyone to be willing, even just after watching this interview, notice what beliefs come up or what comes out of your mouth. And notice how often you might say something that's limiting, and recognize that it happens in an instant. And we continue to create that same reality with our thoughts and words, and that you have the power to go within and completely rewrite all of that and find your freedom.
And I love that. And I go back to something you said at the very beginning, where the subconscious mind controls 95% of what we do. So we're not even thinking about the way we feel about something, but yet it's influenced our day-to-day life. But we have the ability to change that and control our own destiny.
Absolutely.
And that is just amazing. That's the exciting thing about PSYCH-K.
For sure.
Because, when you look in the mirror, are you who you intend to be or who you want to be? You have the opportunity to control that and change that. And PSYCH-K is the perfect vehicle for that. So Elaine, thank you so much for taking time to meet with us today and help us understand PSYCH-K. And I hope and encourage a lot of folks to reach out to you and explore PSYCH-K.
Thanks, Steve, for the opportunity of sharing this.
Great. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Self-Sovereignty. And if you did, like the video and subscribe to the channel. For more information on the PSYCH-K process and upcoming classes, please check out Elaine's website at yourinnersource.com. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.